see you all again.
Yes, back for International Week.
The quarter-finals. We've only got 2 left after this.
I know. It's depressing.
I know. Where's the time gone? But yes, we've gone from 12 down now to our 5, haven't we? Claire, Matt, Liz, Nicole and Mark.
Yes.
Yep.
So at the beginning of this episode, just before we talk about anything, who were you thinking might just perhaps struggle to show their skills?
I don't think... It's not easy this year. It's funny, I was talking to someone else and we were saying there's no clear front runner. And if you think back to previous weeks, you know, there's been good sewers going because they have a bad week. And it was kind of sitting there going, do you know what? It could be anyone.
Yeah.
Agreed. What do you think, Anya?
Very much agree. The only one person that was at the top of my head was Matt, because sometimes he panics.
Yeah.
And he has got great skills, but he panics and then it all goes a wee bit to pot. And I was just a wee bit worried about that.
The only one I didn't think would go was Claire. I thought she's been so cool, calm and collected the whole time. If I'd have had to put money on anyone not going, it was definitely her. But then, you know, like I said, in previous weeks, we've seen people go having a bad week, but she has been fairly consistent, whereas the others have all had their moments, so to say.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have then our 5 left with World Sewing Week. And talking about World Sewing Week and the idea of, you know, lots of influences, just a little plug for the shop. Look what I've got here. I've invested in, look how many sewing needles we have.
Oh my.
Oh, I'm excited.
So we've got loads of universal quilting, we've got ballpoint, we've got sharps.
Do you even know what all of these are used for?
Well, some type of sewing. We've got sewing machine needles for leather.
Twin ones.
Sorry. Your jeans, your metallic. And look, there's our ballpoints. And for our jersey, Anya, look at our stretches.
Yay. I'm excited. And you've got the twin needles as well. I need some of those.
No, so I'm going to try and nick one and do another t-shirt. Well, obviously buy one, obviously.
Yeah, you're going to nick one from yourself.
So we can all start sewing more properly. Is that right? Sewing better.
Using the right tools for the right job. Indeed.
So we're developing our sewing sort of accessories at the shop as we get more and more into the sewing. So get back into the world sewing.
I've never come across a Terno blouse before.
Well, I wouldn't have known that's what it was called, but as soon as they said Imelda Marcos, I was like, oh yes, big sleeve. If you've ever seen her, any pictures of her, she only ever wore those big, I mean, she had it as a full dress, but those big sleeves. So it was one of those things like, oh, that's what it's called, sort of thing.
That and shoes.
Shoes. I think I can give her a run for her money. I'm waiting for 2 pairs to be delivered today.
Yeah. So we obviously knew there were going to be a lot of skills with the sleeves then, with getting those sort of those pleats all in. So that was going to be a big skill. Any other skills they were looking for?
The main one was picking the right fabric, right? That was...
Yeah, I'd written down about the fabric needing body. And also the binding, and as they were warned, covered buttons shouldn't be left to the last minute.
Yeah.
All of them left it to the last minute. God love them.
So I suppose, I think they touched on it briefly, didn't they? That we're down to the last 5, quarter-final. The pressure is on about their sewing ability now, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, the pattern for this, okay, there was the complicated sleeve thing, but if you think back to last week where that jacket they had to make, it was 14 pieces. This one was 8 pieces. So therefore, you are looking now at skill. You're not looking at hundreds of pieces having to be put together. You know, if you've only got 8 pieces, they need to be put together perfectly.
So are we perhaps also saying that time frame is actually a for the skill now, we're not talking beginner sewers, we're talking experienced amateur sewers, that time frame should be very easy to finish that 8-piece garment?
Well, we've always been controversial about the times. I mean, they were given 3.5 hours, 8 pieces with the arms. I suppose the big thing was the covered buttons. But if they'd have had 15 extra minutes, they would have all had covered buttons on. Yeah. So yeah, you would have had to have a certain level of skill.
Okay. Let's get into them then, because I think the button controversy is where I think a few of our arguments are going to occur between Nicole and Mark. But let's go through them. Who was going to struggle right from the beginning with their choice of fabric?
Nicole.
Mark.
And Mark, yeah.
Yeah. Nicole, well, those the beaded fabric, and Mark because it wasn't firm enough.
No, Mark straight away was just this is too thin, and that could possibly be because he didn't really understand what it was. You know, like until someone would have said Imelda Marcos to me, I wouldn't have known what it was. But I mean, after everything I've said, I kind of felt for Nicole because she had really chosen the right kind of fabric. Yeah. And if she'd had an extra hour, she could have done all the snipping off of the beads and got it all done. And it would have looked phenomenal. But that's sometimes where you've got to think 3.5 hours. Yeah, that fabric looks great, but
realistically, is it going to work?
Yeah, it's another one where it made life difficult for her, which we've seen in the past. And which she has even said herself during the challenge. She was like, I've chosen the wrong fabric in the past, but this is it was more authentic and everything else, but it made life difficult for her.
So out of the 5, at the end of the round, those 2 came bottom. We'll carry on talking about them because Mark was bottom, 5th, Nicole was 4th. Where do we feel, though, with the fact that was Mark actually bottom? Should it have been Nicole? Because she didn't finish, did she?
Well, it's interesting because now there's so few of them, I can write down more as I go along. And I put down that everyone had something wrong, or they were doing something wrong or gone against the advice. And the only thing, the only person who didn't seem to be doing it, although it didn't quite come out, was Matt. He seemed to be coping. There was just a little stumble at the end. But I'd written down that Mark's chosen the wrong fabric, that Nicole decided that she was going to use the store-bought bias binding, not making it herself, even not making it from a different colour fabric. And then she had the problem with the beads. Liz's was see-through, and she didn't seem to care about that. And then, although it worked in Claire's favour, Claire chose to do French seams. Now, that could have gone against her, but it did go against what they had to do. And I was like, if they were going to be really picky, everyone was doing something potentially they shouldn't.
But was Claire doing something wrong, or was it that she was doing, it was an added bonus?
It wasn't that she was doing it wrong. It was just that if it went wrong, she was basically, you know, if anything had gone wrong on hers, unpicking a French seam and trying to redo it, well, that just ain't going to happen. Luckily, she got where she needed to be, but I was just like, it's great if you can do that, and it is going to show an extra skill, but it's not what the pattern asked for, and if you run out of time, I can't feel sorry for her. Luckily, she pulled it off.
But when you then see that each one did some sort of error, you look at Nicole and it no buttons and no buttonholes, and so therefore the garment can't do up. Surely that means you should come bottom.
Well, but wasn't Mark's? He was bad fabric, but also he
didn't have covered buttons. He put on plastic buttons.
Yeah, but also some of his seams were off, and his puffy sleeves were not puffy sleeves. Whereas Nicole's,
I mean, they weren't. His sleeves weren't puffy because he hadn't put anything in it. He had put them in quite well, but I think you're right. There was kind of a cross between the two.
Yeah, whether the judging was consistent there, because I think if the garment can't be done up as Nicole's, would that not be classed as unfinished in my mind?
But a lot of them were all unfinished. There wasn't enough buttons.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You know what I mean? So technically, his was also unfinished, and he had bad seams, and you could see where things hadn't been picked up properly and stuff. So I think it probably would have been a very close call. I don't think there was much in it, but if you're going to go, it could be they've decided that bad fabric. At least she had chosen the right fabric.
Well, the other thing, now this might be me. You know me, I like something controversial. The other thing, I didn't really notice until it was on the mannequin. But did you notice that Nicole's fabric had a scalloped edge?
On the bottom, yeah.
Yes, which would have meant that she didn't have to hem the bottom of hers because it was scalloped. She'd done it so the scalloped edge was on the sleeve and the scalloped edge was on the bottom. Yeah. And everyone else had to turn that in. So I know she had to cut all the beads off, but she didn't have to hem anything.
No, but was Liz's scalloped as well, I think?
No, because she had that really thin organza material.
She must have added that herself then, because she also had roundy thing. Because I remember looking at it going, is that part of the material or is part of
Well, I didn't notice it on hers, to be fair, but I did on Nicole's and thought, okay, so she still didn't finish and she had like a pre-hemmed material.
Okay, so we've got then Nicole and Mark probably level pegging, but we know they're fourth and fifth. Liz was third, or in the middle there with Matt. What about those two? As you say, they both had points where they perhaps went a bit wrong.
Yeah, I liked Matt's. I think he just needed an extra. I mean, I think he'd have been all right with an extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and he was the only one that seemed to cope. And it was quite funny because I thought, well, actually, big puffy sleeves, all the buttons and that, with his drag queen backgrounds, it's exactly what he's able to do.
And he got most buttons on, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
Apart from
I was just surprised at the judges. Saying that the see-through fabric was fine.
But maybe it is one of those where you would have it over a wee vest.
But that's not what they said, though, was it?
No, but they didn't say it doesn't have to be.
No. But I just felt that
blouses that are see-through and you're expected to wear them over a vest.
Yeah, but I just felt that if they were going down that route, they'd already talked about how they use that special pineapple fabric, whatever it was called. I've written it down here, but I can't read my writing. But, and all of the pictures they showed and everything, none of them were see-through. And I just thought that was a big risk. But then obviously they didn't care because they put Claire first.
Yeah.
And it was stunning though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but if it's going to be in a warmer climate, it's going to be summertime. A lot of women do wear very sheer tops and you just have that wee vest top underneath. So I didn't see it as a big deal at all. It was more important that it had good structure and it was able to have that puff and to hold its shape really well, which and to get the sleeve in well and stuff like that.
Claire just seemed to breeze through. I mean, to have all that time to get the proper bias binding done, to get the French seams done, how did she manage that compared to everyone else?
Well, so I've got a bit of a thought on this, and it's also why Mark potentially has gone and Liz might be in trouble as well. But we've talked about throughout the show, Liz is going on about her 90s goth. I'm telling you, that's now starting to really get on my wig. And Mark, bless him, he was always about the vintage and he had that 70s look and the fabrics and the prints he chose. And and you've had Claire with all of her 40s and 50s. She kind of said that right at the start. But what Claire's been very good at doing is just using that as an influence in what she does. So if you think about a 1940s dress, it wouldn't have had the big puffball, but it would have had a little one. And she would have been used to doing that. And so she's very good at saying, I love that type of clothing and I let it influence what I do. Whereas Mark and Liz are trying to recreate 90s goth or recreate some 70s outfit and forcing it in, and then it doesn't work. And then when they're confronted with something they don't normally do, that's when they struggle. Whereas Claire's very good at saying, I'm going to take the influence of the 1940s and use the skills that I've got. And I think she probably, having put in like those 1940s capped sleeves, she's only got to put in a little bit extra material to get those butterfly sleeves that she did so well.
seems to also be quite logical when it comes to the pattern challenges and stuff. She seems to be able to logically allocate enough time. Majority of the time she does well with her time allocation, and she seems to have the right kind of, you know, we've talked about patterns before. You kind of have to have the right kind of brain sometimes just to read it through in the first place. And she generally seems to manage to stay fine. And you're right, I think she would have also come into contact with covered buttons and stuff before, because that's quite, you know, that's from that kind of time as well. And
good point.
I don't know, she just seemed to be, oh, I've got this, it's fine, just keep on going. And
her day job, is her day job perhaps more suited to an intense amount of pressure?
Well, I said that until, you know, we get to the last challenge, which is something we'll come to. But I was convinced, like, she's dealt with, you know, this amount of pressure really well all the way up until now, and she's kind of managed to keep her head. So, you know, if you're used to dealing with a lot of pressure, maybe it stands to you when it comes to it.
I know some of you are Mark fans, so within minutes of Mark choosing that fabric, I think you both texted, didn't you, and went, "Oh, that's it.
Yeah,
in trouble."
I would have loved to have seen Mark make it all the way through to the final, but looking back, you also have to say that he has kind of got to his level in this episode. I don't think he would have done anything more spectacular, and I don't like saying that, but I think he's kind of got to the best he could do. In that respect,
which we have to say is pretty outstanding.
It's better than I could do.
So it's an incredible level already, and that's something we should highlight. That it's pretty good sewing.
Okay, so we've got Claire on first, and then we are, you know, that whole idea of Nicole and Mark at the bottom. So let's go to the transformation challenge then, with the what was it, the Provencal
tablecloth.
Fancy tablecloth, yeah.
Fun, great fun, because we were coming up with fun ideas. What did you say, Ting? What to make?
Cut a hole in the middle, throw it over your head, boom, poncho, 5 minutes, sit down, have a cup of coffee for the rest of the challenge.
I went with just a skirt. You could just put the hole, pull it up, done.
So it was a garment for a man, woman, or child, and they could use complementary fabrics as well from the haberdashery.
This was a good challenge. I'm not sure we saw the best from the sewers, but essentially you were told you can make anything you want, man, woman or child, any type of garment, blouse, trousers, shorts, whatever. You've got to use that tablecloth, but you can use other stuff as well. And just do it. And some of them, you know, rose to that challenge. Some of them took a bit of time. I mean, they still only had 90 minutes to do it, so we're not looking for this massive finish, but you know, it still needed to be good and functional. And I mean, I just thought that there was some good ideas there, but I was still a little bit disappointed with some of it, to be honest.
Agreed, definitely.
Yeah, I suppose it comes down to how extravagant or how clever the end garment is, or how normal it is, and I think that's where perhaps Nicole got sort of stuck in that position, didn't she? Because they were great Samba style trousers, baggy trousers, MC Hammer trousers.
Yeah, there were just more flary things with bottom. I was really disappointed with them.
Too normal.
Kind of like what I did with the skirt, and you just seam up the middle. And
well, this is where Nicole, you know, I have this love-hate relationship with Nicole, because she could have done whatever she wanted. She had that plan in her head. She then went and sewed the two trousers together, and in effect, cutting up a tablecloth and then sewing it back together again into a big round skirt, and had to unpick it. And then, of course, that put a lot of pressure on her, that when she then sewed it back together, she didn't match the patterns. And it was just like, come on, this is the semi-final, and you're still doing these little things.
And we obviously had that bit from Patrick at the beginning, looking for skills that if they're going to, we want to see them, if they're going to mix and bring lines together, they've got a pattern match. So that was almost foreshadowed, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So,
so that was Nicole. What about Mark and his purple and lilacs?
That was another one. I was like, he's just cut it in the middle, and he's I wasn't impressed with that one at all.
He kind of knew that as well, didn't he? Because he said, I don't want to say it's a cape, but actually
It's
It
cute.
is.
If you're going to make a cape, just go for it and make a half-decent cape. He started off, and then it turned into this bed jacket type thing. I was just looking at it going, what are you doing?
I know. It was just really, really strange. Because I looked at it and I was like, it's just, I can kind of understand, it's got that nice square sleeve, and but
lapels. It was a nice.
That wasn't very skillful.
No.
It kind of looked like he had just cut and added some sleeves and stuck on weird pockets, and I was really disappointed. I was like,
I was going to say, I know you were both fans, so you were probably going, "Oh no, that's going to be again."
To me, like I said, he should have just gone for it with the cape. He should have got that purple tablecloth. He should have then got that really deep purpley used on the pockets, lined the underside of the cape with it, put a big collar on, huge bow. Esme would have loved that. Boom, fine.
But it looked like it did look like a weird house coat that
that some 70-year-old has been in the garden with, just wiping her hands off.
Yeah, you got your gloves in one pocket, cup of tea. I don't know.
Now, what about Liz's big arm wizard drapey thing?
I actually loved it.
You would.
I couldn't work it out. At one minute, I was loving it because it was that whole sort of Star Wars Obi-Wan sort of outfit, but the belt certainly helped.
Yeah. I think the belt sealed it, and I think before that it was a wee bit, and then she put the belt on, and I was like, oh yes, that is class. I want that.
But that idea of one big arm and no arm, I thought was that clever?
Was it luck? Because the thing with this, I'm sorry, Anya, the thing with this is she just threw it over that mannequin and said, oh, I'm going to start draping. And you're like, well, okay, that sounds sensible because you haven't got a pattern to work to. Yeah. And then it just seemed to be more luck than there was pins going in, there was scissors going in, and then it was kind of like, well, now what I've done and where I've cut, I have now got to try and turn this into something. And I don't know how much of it was luck and how much of it was judgment, to be honest.
There was some judgment, because I remember when she did talk about she was able to carry the pattern through to the sleeves, so that there was not that much continuous. And she did pin it and then go, oh, big sleeve, I know what I'm doing, But that's
I think she played to her strengths, because she did say whenever she's draped before, she's done very well. So she carried on doing her strength, and and therefore it came, and it did when you lifted the arm and you saw that diagonal sweep and then the sort of flowing bits at the bottom, it did actually really look quite cool.
And the pinning across, and those lines, and it had a lovely. But yeah, I think the belt, I'm so pleased she actually was like, I'm going to add a belt to it as well. I was like, that's finished it. That was the little details.
That was the saving bit of that,
I actually thought Matt's was really, really clever. I can't help feeling that he just got a bit shoved to one side, that it wasn't. Was it not clever, that? The D-rings, the cool sort of Hawaiian bra.
Didn't look comfortable.
No.
And the little...
You know what it did remind me of? Your woman, like when she was the slave to with the bikini on. Yeah, it just made me think of something like that. It was like
Game of Thrones sort of thing.
No, from Star Wars years ago. Leia, no?
Oh, Princess Leia.
Oh.
Isn't that weird? And then the tiny skirt. I wasn't a fan of the D-links or any of that.
It's interesting with this challenge because, like we've always said, it's a 90-minute challenge, and once you get the idea, they then just go straight with that idea. And if they had longer, they would think, because I thought, he put some skills in there. He put the D-rings in, and it was very tight. I don't know if it was very practical, but if he'd had a bit longer, he must have had loads of material left over, because those tablecloths were huge. Yeah. So he could have done a bigger skirt. He could have done a better, more fitted kind of top in some way. Yeah. And at least all the others looked wearable. His didn't.
No. Well, it might be something in Ibiza in the 90s, maybe.
Yeah. Give it to Liz and send her on holiday.
They're always talking about, in that transformation, having something dramatic, aren't they? Yeah. And that's why I can understand why Nicole was, in 5th place. So I just didn't know whether that was perhaps more dramatic, especially when you then look at Claire's, stunning, the little child's dress.
Yeah, that was a massive change. And that was a lot of skill. I don't know if there was as much skill in Matt's. The more, it was definitely a bit dramatic. But
again, I'm coming out in defence of Nicole here, but I think her trousers, if she had got the pattern to line up, then I think they would have given her more for those trousers. But then that's when you have to say, well, they were finished. Okay, the finish wasn't great with the pattern matching. And then you look at some of those other outfits and go, was it fair to put her at the bottom?
Yeah. I would have put Mark at the bottom and Matt next, because I was not a fan of Matt at all.
But you see, we then get to the end of this round where we've had Nicole and Mark in the bottom either way rounds for the 2 previous rounds. So you're kind of sat there going, well, this week it's pretty much a given. It has to be one of those. I couldn't see anyone having a bad enough week to knock one of those 2 off the bottom.
Yeah, especially like you said in the transformation, like Claire's girl's dress. Can we just take a minute? Because that was outstanding. That was utterly outstanding.
Elastic in the arms,
binding around the top.
Yeah.
Without a pattern, she did all of that without a pattern.
Yeah, and she even thought, oh, I'll put a little apron on. She got extra time to put a little apron on. I'm just 90 minutes.
It would have looked nicer without the apron, I think. Do you not think?
Oh, well,
I mean, it was a removable apron. It wasn't.
It was an additional item, and in a 90-minute challenge, that is quite phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Utterly incredible. So that's why I was like, this girl can handle her stress. Oh wow, I was impressed.
I think I then said to you at that point, I just feel that Claire is way ahead now, really, at that 5.
So what you're saying is we jinxed Claire. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So we go then into the made to measure round, really thinking that it's, as you say, Ting, it is Nicole or Mark, isn't it?
Well, they're the 2 you're now going to watch. You're going to watch the others and see what they produce. But like I said, unless someone was going to have an absolutely horrific day, I couldn't see any way back for either of them, to be fair.
And normally we have the Joe's curse bit, because we've obviously gone down so far now, he can't really mention anyone else. So Patrick did actually just say, really, didn't he? It's Nicole or Mark.
Well, no, he mentioned Matt, didn't he?
Not that I know of, no.
I thought he then said. I thought Patrick said someone right at the end.
Oh, did he? Oh, I'll have to have another look again. He might have done. No, I thought it was quite straightforward between the 2 of them.
One or the other. Yeah.
So we were sort of, it was going to be, a close one, watching the final challenge, which was to do a flamenco-inspired skirt. Now, how much of a talking point is that, the inspired bit, when it comes to judging?
Well, they have to say inspired, or otherwise they would have to all do exactly the same pattern, wouldn't they? So you're just saying you've got to make a flamenco one, so go down your charity shop and see if you can find a pattern
that's inspired by it. Yes, okay. Some may be more inspired than others.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a theme among most of them, apart from one. So
go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, Mark, he went with something that was very, very simple, and only he had the afterthought at the very end to add a bit more to it. They even said as much. They were like, this could have...
But sometimes we've often said simple doesn't necessarily mean therefore it's easier and less... No. It's sometimes
his simple was not demonstrating a whole pile of skill.
I mean, I've liked Mark, and I still think he sewed a really good garment there, but there was little things he could have done. If he was going to have a very loose wraparound skirt, he should have put more kind of interfacing in the waistband so it held a bit more. Yeah. And then he did have that lovely cascade that went down the front that Esme pointed out. Yeah. But in the cascade, he was showing the back of the fabric. Now, a bit like the cape I just said, he should have, if he was going to have that as the front, he should have at least lined, because it was only a bit of fabric that was like that long and then it all draped down. So he should have lined that so that when it drapes, you had that kind of, I don't know, a rusty colour or a red colour that was in there, and not the raw back of the fabric, and that might have helped him out a little bit. Although I think when you then look at the other dresses, I don't think he could have overtaken anyone else, even if he'd made those tweaks.
Well, I don't know. You talk about that. I don't think it was the first time with, well, not the first time, but with Claire, I was actually quite worried that, well, not that she was going to go, but her skirt,
Yeah,
it was too big. It looked long and heavy. It didn't have any, it kind of looked like somebody playing dress up in their mum's clothes. Do you know what I mean? It looked
their mum's
big.
curtains.
Yeah, it looked too big, it was too long, it was too heavy. It looked like I'd gone in and...
I think when you look at the picture of the sketch, it was didn't it say a knee-high ruffle? I think the ruffles ended up being near the lower part of the shin, didn't it? So therefore it looked heavy, needed to be a bit higher. She could have got away.
I think that was in part, though, because she didn't get the netting under, because the netting would have lifted that a bit more.
But you're right.
She spent so long pencil skirt part of it, and it still wasn't right, and that was me going, oh, what's happened? I was a bit, because I like Claire generally, she does okay, but this
is where I felt for Mark a little bit, because Claire, not that I wanted Claire to go home, because it was just but hers didn't have quite a good fit. And then was it also it was Lizzie's. You could see before that model walks down, because the model did a little thing, and I was like, that is going to shoot off her. Yeah. You could see the massive gap at the end, and that was the first thing. This is too big, and she hadn't fitted it around the waist properly. Yeah. So there was fitting issues, and I thought, well, Mark had done a simpler pattern, and yes, he should have perhaps interfaced his waistband, and he should have perhaps lined that drape. But everything else, he did all of those flounces, and he'd hemmed them all, and he'd done all of that. And then there was just other people who, I wouldn't say they cut corners, but there was things fundamentally wrong with the fit on some of the others.
Overall this week, he didn't do enough to demonstrate his
which is a shame, really.
Yeah.
But what? I mean, he's made loads of things before. Surely he would have known when, you have the week, don't you? We got told by Janet that they then submit their plans. So he would have known that cascade, you would have seen the reverse of the fabric. So I wonder perhaps what he was thinking there.
It depends, though, because if he was trying to keep the costs down, he might have made that out of like a calico at home to keep it cheap, and of course you wouldn't pick up on that because the calico's the same on each side, and you just look at it and go, oh yeah, that's going to look great. But then when you make it out of the proper fabric, other things crop up.
Well,
and to be fair, he wouldn't have lots of experience creating women's skirts and
things. That was the other thing, is he does a lot of sewing, but he makes a lot of men's clothes.
Let's go back to Liz then, with her gothic Dracula-inspired. I have to say, it's the first one I've really loved of Liz's, because I like the colour, the red and the black, and that little bit of black there. Thought it worked really well, but you could see a few fitting issues there for sure.
I felt so bad for her as well, after her getting so excited about her invisibles at being invisible. And then that gap at the top, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah. So. The other thing as well, and this is where I just think you need to wind your neck in about the 90s stuff. She made such a big thing about how she wanted to recreate that red dress in the Dracula thing and all of that. And they showed the picture, and it was almost like a proper flamenco-y type dress.
Yeah. And
then she produced that, and I was like, but that's not a recreation of that dress. So there was kind of like, well, don't give me all this, I'm inspired by the 90s, and then don't give it to me.
Yeah. But I think it was still I thought it was quite a good skirt.
It was good, yeah.
Well, it was one of my favourites out of all the things that she's made, for sure. I think, but the colour certainly helped there. What about Matt's scuba fabric choice?
Oh, this was one I was a bit worried about Matt. It's self-drafted pattern again. I thought, oh no. And then he decided no interfacing at all at the top. I was like, that's not going to hold, which we demonstrated as soon as his model walked down. He had to come up and hike the skirt up. But yeah.
But then I suppose he felt a bit of comfort because that scuba fabric has got some weight to it. That doesn't excuse him because he should have made it before and should have gone, oh yeah, that probably needs to be done. But yeah, there's a bit of weight behind it. So I suppose he thought, oh, it'll be fine because it's already doubled over, isn't it? So
yeah, that's why, for example, I'm making a pair of trousers and you have the doubled over at the top, but the fabric at the bottom is lighter. Whereas he was all the same. It's like, that's just going to go. Do you know what I mean?
I thought it looked very much like a cuttlefish as well, with all the things that it was kind of. But his was the only one where I felt that it looked a bit more like a proper flamenco dress.
You could see more of that inspiration.
Yeah.
I think I preferred Liz's style of flamenco though, where you have the at the front. I expected more from his, considering he was talking about these big, massive, the circles he were doing were ginormous.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is going to be so dramatic. And it kind of wasn't. I was a wee bit let down when I seen him walking down, and I was like, oh, I kind of expected more of something going on with those massive amounts of material that you've put in there, but it seemed just heavy again, and it just seemed...
Yeah.
Like,
I must admit, I mean, I wasn't overawed with any of them, to be fair.
No, I don't think they were dramatic enough, were they?
No, and you know, we're also a Strictly fan, and when you think of the dresses that they would have for those sorts of dances, and they've done flamenco on there before, yes, it needs to be fitted on the hips, but it needed to come out and kind of drape down and have a bit more train behind it, so your legs can get out of the front, but everything's in the behind, so to speak.
And that is exactly perfectly put. That's why Nicole did so well, because that was like that, and that's why Ed absolutely loved it, because of all those super ruffles and frills that ended up going behind. The legs are out the front, aren't they?
Yes, it was fabulous. It looked like a party in a dress. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. And this is where she came back. She got good detail in with her binding and all those little details. The more she didn't get the bit around the top of her waistband, which was a shame. But she did really, I loved it. It looked like you're right. I'm ready for a festival. Let's go. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't like the fabric, but did you like the structure?
No,
I think...
But it had everything that you said. It had the tight waist and what Esme wanted then, the big ruffles and the frills with the legs out. You could see it all.
Yes, but...
Oh, you can't go back on yourself. You've just said...
Yes, I can, because what I want to see is that kind of, if they're looking that way, I want to see I want a longer skirt at the back. I want it to come right down, whereas hers was very much all around there. And then I just didn't like the fabric. I love the African fabric on its own, but when you're going to ruffle it all up like that, and she had the two clashing colours, and I was like, no. This is where you're not thinking about, it's flamenco, it's a completely different continent, you know, do something. If she had done that in like the reds and the blacks, and she could have still put a lovely binding on, although she didn't have enough of it, so she obviously had done something miscalculated. But, you know, she could have had that stand out completely. It stood out, but for me, the wrong reasons. That fabric, it just wasn't the right stuff to use for that.
But you talked about Mark's dress. Should he not have used all the reds and blacks then? Because his was all full of colour and all full of a different...
It was, but it still had those tones of like the reds and the rusts and...
Yeah. But hers also had the reds and the vibrant colours. Like a samba and a party, they have all of the colours.
I loved it. It was phenomenal. I think it had...
Whatever.
It had exactly what the judges wanted, didn't it? Have that. I
think you'll find that the comments in this video will all back me up and not you.
I just love that you like a good. I'm just much more diplomatic.
I mean, that's all of them talked about, and it leads us nicely onto garment of the week. Was it garment of the week though?
Oh yes.
No.
Well, what would you have picked as garment of the week?
Sorry?
Claire's her Terno blouse.
Yeah, no. I would have gone with Claire's child's dress.
Oh, right.
I thought that was good. Yeah. But I also thought, none of those Terno blouses were really finished. But I thought Matt had done well on that Terno blouse. Probably not garment of the week standard, though.
But to be fair, Claire's blouse was finished. We should highlight this. She had her flip seams, her cover button, her big sleeves.
And she used that material as her binding as well, which, you know, a couple of the others hadn't. And Liz didn't, even with hers. She put a plain black binding on hers.
Yeah, it was a contrast. But I don't know, I absolutely loved.
I think those frills and how it cascaded down, yes, it was.
It is something you would see on Strictly. You could just see one of them out having an absolute ball, possibly with that D-leg top.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be sorted. You'd be ready for a party. Not a problem.
They do have the same models. I looked back.
Where's this coming from?
I looked back, well, because the idea is, I think I said to you last week on the text, do they have the same models? They've measured those models each week, so they know those model sizes inside out. So how can they not fit them at week 7, week 8 in the programme?
I thought, are they the same models, or were they the models from a different...
They're the same models they get on each transfer made to measure round.
Yeah, you can't get the measurements right every time. You have water retention, you have hormones playing up. You cannot guess these things. And especially if they're using the same models every week. I'm sorry, as a female, that varies, okay? So maybe that's where Claire went wrong. Maybe her model was bloated the first time and then it wasn't the second time and she just went with the first measurements.
Well, that didn't help Claire. Claire didn't get it finished, did she? She had all that netting to go in.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why her measurements were all wrong and it was too big. So, you know. But, yeah.
When they said garment of the week and they said Nicole, Ting, you obviously threw your slipper at the TV then, didn't you?
Well, no, I'm not that
No, I know.
bad with Nicole. For me, this week, Nicole for me was just this roller coaster ride, because it's not, you know, I want all of the sewers to do well, and she's just had this complete roller coaster ride because she wants to be subversive, but she also obviously wants to win and do the best she can and try and stand out. And we've said this before, it's fine to do that, but you've got to find the balance.
Maybe
so that
I was going to say, maybe that's how she finds the balance. She's just constantly like this. So
that would be why when I got to this one, I needed the sick bucket with all the clashing colours. After that roller coaster, I was like, I can't cope with that.
And I think she will carry on being like that, won't she? You know, one minute she might be winning the first round, and next minute she's at the bottom.
Well, you've got to remember this week she was in the bottom twice, and she got it back with Garment of the Week for the last one. But when you consider what's happened in the past, and when you consider we have only really got next week, because the week after is the final, she's very vulnerable next week to going home. Yeah. If she's gonna mess around and try and do stuff that's a little bit outside her comfort zone, because very often they'll turn around and say, "Have you used this fabric before? Have you done that before?" And she'll go, "Oh no," and you're just like, "No."
Yeah. But that's the same with some of them. They're just like, well, I've not done this pattern or the fabric before, but it's going to be fine. And you're like, no, it's not. I think next week is going to be interesting between Nicole and Matt. Whether he can keep, and those are the two that I'm worried about the most.
Well, you think Liz and Claire are definites for the final?
I think Claire, if she continues how she did this week and just kept on and did a really good, you know, garment of made to measure, or even if she did a half good made to measure, she's generally
you see,
she's snuck up. Liz has like that. I never even saw her in the final 5, and there she is. And I think now, yes, I think you're right, Anya. I mean, I could be wrong, but next week they said it's movie week, so it's always good to have a different theme week. We haven't had that before, and it was very clear that the made to measure one it looks like a flapper's dress. Now, that's quite loose fitting, and I think that'll suit Matt very well. Okay.
Yeah, and he should be good for a bit of drama. But the only thing with Matt is he can do these awesome things, but if he loses his cool, he really loses.
But this is where I think Nicole could be in trouble, because if you're doing a flapper dress, it needs to look like a 1920s, 30s flapper dress. And if she starts going a bit off-piste...
Yeah.
But she could also have one of these weeks, and she could do another...
She could have one of these weeks.
Which is why I think you're right, Anya. In my head, it's Liz and Claire in the final, and we've now got to see between Nicole with her up and downy and Matt.
Yeah.
Well, But
however,
if we're talking about, you know, how they managed to shoot themselves in the foot, with Liz, she can't go 90s goth if they're making period costumes.
but
And if she tries to shoehorn it in, it could go wrong.
But she didn't shoehorn it in with her Chinese dress thing, her kimono style.
No.
So she is capable.
But that was done off. But this is it. She is capable because that was done completely off the hoof. When she's got thinking time, like the made to measure and stuff like that, where she's trying to kind of say, let's get that 90s feel in there, that's when it can go a bit awry.
I don't think Patrick and Esme help because every time she does something that's kind of 90s, they're like, oh, this looks like you, it's very 90s, or you've added in your 90s element, you know it was yours. So I think that's probably in her head now, that she has to make sure she demonstrates that it's her thing. Maybe.
I think Claire is the sure thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Matt in the final. But I think, you know, Liz, Nicole and Matt, they're the ones we just got to keep an eye on. I think Claire's a given.
Stop saying, look.
Although, we've just cursed her.
Yes.
No, I think Claire has too many skills, and she is, you know, way above.
Well, if you remember though, Anya and I did say that we like Claire right at the beginning. That she was in the background. You didn't. You were for Therese.
Mark, but I thought Mark would be fine, and now Mark's gone. So.
Yeah, I was Therese and Nicole, so I'm, you know, I've still got a little bit of my foreseeing there. Nicole.
Yeah, I also said Nicole, so you know, I think I've said all of them at some point. So,
but I've never said Nicole.
I think we've really enjoyed Claire's journey. She's really come out. She talks a lot now. They're editing her in more.
Because they've edited in everyone else because they've been doing such shocking stuff.
Yeah.
Claire has managed to sit in the background because she's good at what she does.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you've got all evening.
Getting a disco over there. Is it a 90s disco?
It is actually. How did you know?
So we know
the black top.
So everyone, you've heard who we think will be going next week and who will be in our final three. Let's hear your comments of who's going to be in the final three. Loving reading the comments.
It's getting very chatty in the comments, isn't it?
I need to catch up. I'm so far behind.
Oh, there were some great comments there about what people are making, about where they agree and disagree. And
did you see the lady from last week who picks up on the thing we all missed out on about how what they did in the transformation challenge was mirrored in their made to measure? I feel like I need to resign for not picking up on that.
Was that Felicity? I can't remember now.
I think so, yeah.
There's been some fabulous comments there, and it's so nice to be able to talk about all the sewing, isn't it? And you know, and what people are making and what worked and perhaps what didn't, and hearing everyone's opinions, which is what it's all about. And we did all that in half an hour today.
Oh, you wish. It's been some light lockdown relief though, hasn't it? Because this has pretty much lasted the length of lockdown.
Yes. It will be 10. This is the 8th time. 9th next week with the semi-final, and then the final. So it'll be 10 episodes we've done.
Yeah.
And it's worked really well, actually. More than I could ever have thought. Actually, better than us doing it in the shop.
Oh yeah, it's better that I don't have to see you like that.
Oh, dear.
I miss you terribly though, Anya.
Yeah, I miss you too, Ting. We do miss you, Stuart, promise.
Yeah, I miss you all. But,
and you're busy making your shop COVID ready, aren't you?
Yes.
I am indeed. One person in the shop at a time, queuing outside in front of the window. I'm going to get some spray and do some little circles on the pavement so people know where they can stand. But it's actually very easy. One person in, because it's so small and tiny, and then they can have the whole shop. And my till, I'll just sit out the back there. So no pressure at all. But I'm not too sure about footfall and how busy it will be. So I'm just doing Friday and Saturday at first, and we'll slowly build it up when I think people get more comfortable.
Because they can still order online, yeah?
They can indeed. And we're
Did
still
you get new machine needles, I think?
Well, that's if he's put them onto the system yet.
No, God, no. Only just unwrapped it, ready for today. It's brilliant. Ooh, I think I might have a twin ballpoint needle there. It's great.
You wouldn't even know what to do with a twin ballpoint needle.
I shall start researching.
It's on that note.
Wonderful chatting to you all, and see you all next week, everyone.
Yeah, see you soon.
Indeed.
Bye.
Fabulous. Stop.